Hey, welcome, Cattle Drive Live. Corey Thompson. I'm Brett Carter. We are back at you again. Corey, we are round two of Humble Beginnings.
Yes, we are. Brett, did you get healed up after the week in Grand Island?
I did get healed up. Yeah, you bet. It was a good week all the way around. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
all things main and you for the week. The record numbers. They talked about record exhibitors, record livestock. Good show. I could go to Grand Island each year, I think.
Yep.
So.
Hey, I tell you who is still healing up from that event is that Kit Jakey, it sounds like.
Oh my gosh, Bob May slapped him around a little bit, didn't he?
Yep, yep. The big guy got taken to the cleaners, but boy, what an awesome time and great event.
It was. Yeah, you guys started that back in the year. It was a joke that kind of got out of hand, and then it really did happen. And leave it to Lindsay to come up with a wrestling match, and man to man at the Grand happened, and it was a big event for sure. I'll tell you what was also a big event was watching Dave Geyer get a bucket of water poured on his head.
Oh boy, oh boy.
It
Yeah,
was
there was a
that
lot
was
of buyouts, and I think that's the first time that I can remember that there was only one bucket got tossed in the whole
yeah,
deal, and
yeah.
it just kept getting bought out.
One bucket bring $3,300 that night.
Yep.
So it
Oh yeah.
was it was it was pretty good stuff. So I give it to Charlie Wilson. He saved the day. Give the bucket to his wife, and she drowned at Geyer. So it was good
Drowned it.
stuff.
Yep. Got her boss wet.
Yeah, I would say, speaking of them, you guys convinced me that I needed to help you this year at the show circuit kickball tournament. And might I add, that is quite the good time. So,
Yeah, they got. I think there was just right at 400 kids involved in that deal.
and it's
It's
competitive. Parents get
it's
all bent out of shape over a bunt and an out, or
yeah.
I don't know. It's all right though. It was a good time had by all. But let's get rolling tonight on this humble beginnings, and it's something that we've talked about for a while now. We started the last 2 weeks with Brandon Horn. Um, you know, you wonder sometimes if people listen to us or not until something goes wrong and you start getting text messages, and it's nice to know people do listen to what we do, and but more importantly, it's nice that guys like Brandon take the time to tell us their story, give us some insight on the things that they go through to get to that point. But to shift around and bounce around, Corey, we both agreed we weren't going to stay in club calf. We weren't going to stay in seed stock. We were going to try to do a cross section of number one, our friends, but number two, people who are influential. And this week, the next 2 weeks, I think we have just exactly what we're looking for of humble beginnings with the Boyert brothers. I don't know about you. I'm pretty pumped to get to hear, you know, what I don't even know the whole story. I don't want to sit here and act like I do, but
Yeah, I tell you what, I didn't know the whole story from start to finish either, and I did a little research and called some friends, and I tell you what, this one Brandon's deal was very good, but this one I think it's going to give it all it wants.
I think so too. And I'll tell you, if you're listening, text Corey, or if there's somebody out there that you'd like to hear, let us know. I will tell you, we probably have no interest in sitting and visiting about every little section, but I hope through this series you're going to get to hear how these guys have come up. A lot of them you'll find out didn't come from livestock backgrounds, but they didn't allow that to define them, And I think what we want to do is get out of these guys, for the ones sitting at home. The humps and bumps and bruises happen to all of these guys. It's just how they deal with it. So bear with us here as we go over this for the next little while with this humble beginnings. But Corey, tonight I think it's my pleasure to get to introduce three young guys in this industry: the Boyert brothers, Clayton, Jake, Jared. Hi guys.
How's it going?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's going good, man. Glad glad to know that you guys could take time. I know Jared, when we visited about this, you were getting ready for not one but two junior nationals. I saw you last week at Mains and Keys. So how many of these junior nationals will you guys attend at some form or fashion?
5, I think.
Wow.
5, yeah. Yeah. Keys and Mains, Charolais, Angus, Herefords, and Simmentals.
Golly, unreal. Awesome.
Yeah, it's enough.
Good deal. Well, hey, let's dive right into this, guys. Y'all heard as we opened up kind of the gist of what we're after here, and I think it not to reiterate it, but humble beginnings. I think it's perfect for you guys. So let's get started early. Let's talk about early Boyert brothers. Take us back to Ohio and what it was like growing up, and what Corey and I find out a greenhouse family.
Yeah, I'll let Jake and Clayton. They're still there. They're very active and involved in it. We actually have 3 other siblings as well, and 2 of them are actively involved, and then one of them is actually the girls track coach at Oklahoma State. And so they can kind of talk a little bit more about that because they still help my parents out quite a bit. And I wanted them to kind of explain. You can kind of explain that in some detail for you.
Yep, Clayton, you want to start this, or
you go ahead? You can.
What I think is neat is we're talking about humble beginnings, and you wanted to start from the beginning, and where we all started was at the greenhouse, to be honest with you. And my parents would probably be one of the first people that come to mind when you talk about humble beginnings. I guess they would have started 35 years ago. Would that be about right?
Yeah.
And when they moved to Seville, which is where we all grew up, they didn't have a whole lot. They were trying to make a wind of it, and I'll never forget. There's actually a story my dad tells, and I think it's kind of neat. But he'll always tell, when they kind of moved in and they were getting ready to start, they had a vision and a drive to see that succeed. But when he went in and he went to the bank and kind of gave them their plan as far as what they wanted to do. And when he finished, the banker, he looked at him and said, "Hey, I don't mean to be rude, but this is never going to work." And my dad picked up his things and was getting ready to head out. And he turned around and looked at him and said, "Hey, I'm going to be back in a few years, and you're going to be eating your words." And so that's something I'll always remember. I just think it was a cool thing. And kind of come full turn. It was a few years later down the road, and my dad was in the bank, and he stopped in his office and said, "Hey, remember that one time you turned that loan down?" He said, and they just kind of laughed about it because what they've done is pretty neat when they're in their business and seeing it grow. And I would say, Jared said there's 6 of us, and we all started there. That was all probably our first job. I remember growing up, and our first job was always doing carryouts. Yep. And to be honest, that's the best job you can get. They always, when we were kids, we were probably 4 when we started. We'd be carrying stuff out, and they give you $1, and we weren't supposed to take the tips, but we always did. And my mom would kill us if she knew, but she still, it was pretty hard on that. But that's where we all started. And like Jared said, there's 2 that still my oldest 2, they still siblings, they still are very involved in that, and Clayton and I still help. And it's kind of neat to grow up and see how they started, because it's honestly kind of what we've done with what the 3 of us have done, as far as just starting small and seeing what works and kind of building off of that. My parents will always tell you, quality and customer service are the 2 priorities, and that's kind of how we've built what we've done. But we Clayton and I, we are still involved there a little bit, and we help them when they're busy. It kind of works out for both of us. When they're busy, we're kind of slow, and so we get to kind of help at the greenhouse. And when they slow down, we head back to the farm. So.
You bet. I hear just from I did a little background, checking with some of your friends and some stories. I just heard rumors that growing up there was not a lot of air conditioning in your household.
Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up, because we always joke about it, because we always say, when we were growing up, we didn't have air conditioning, so it was always like you were out in the barn, because that was way cooler than the house even was. And I think that was part of my parents' plan a little bit. But I do remember it was like the hottest day in the summer, and Mark Hogue came, laid over.
Anna's wedding.
Yeah, it was my sister's wedding that weekend, and Mark Hogue laid over, and that next morning he's like, "Man, I woke up at 3. I just went out, just stripped down to my boxers and sat in my car." Just turned the air conditioning on.
Hey, Hogue actually told me, he said, have you ever seen a crime scene on a TV show with the chalk line around the people? That was me, except it was a line of sweat.
No joke. I put a window air conditioner in my room one time. My mom got so mad she just cut the cord on it.
Well, yeah, somebody had told me that they thought Jake got caught sneaking an air conditioner, but that was you think,
Yeah.
Jared?
Well,
That was you, yeah. Sneaking a window air conditioner in.
I asked her, I was like, well, why can't we have air conditioning? And she said, because I like to hear the birds chirp in the morning. I said, I'll get you a DVD. We'll put it on.
Oh,
Yeah, we had no air conditioning. We had a TV. We had cable. My parents came. My mom, she was pretty hardcore. She came in one day and we were watching it midday. And she said, if you don't go outside, I'm going to cut the cord. She came back. About an hour later, we were still there, and she cut the cord. And I don't think we had cable till we were like, I was a senior maybe in high school, I don't think. So
really?
we pretty much spent a lot of our time outside.
Right. So that was probably on your parents' deal. That was probably more for design than anything. So
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jay said, they growing up, they started that themselves, and everything that they made, they would put right back into that. And I would say, continuing to grow and just build and make it bigger and better. There was anything that they profited, it would go right back into that business, and so that was probably honestly for us, watching that, seeing that is just kind of a pretty neat business model for us to see firsthand and kind of witness it and be a part of that.
Yeah. And I would say too, like what I think is neat is like they have been successful and they've done a lot, but they still look for ways to just improve and get better and do different things. And I think that has helped us out, seeing that, just being able to kind of incorporate that in what we do. So I think that is neat because they have been, but they're still hungry to do more.
Yeah, they sat us down 2-3 years ago, said they were going to retire. I think they built 3 greenhouses since then, maybe. So I mean, there's no quit in them for sure.
Yeah. I think mom's kind of aging toward ready to be done. Dad's like every day, about once a week at lunch, he's like, "What do you think? We had another greenhouse on?"
So at what point? I mean, we've heard about this greenhouse. At what point did livestock become an interest of one of the siblings, one of you guys? Where do we start to interject some livestock in here?
My parents, like their original place that they bought, is it 35 acres maybe? Yeah, 35 acres. And so they always had, my dad had just few commercial cows. And they did a lot of stuff. like agriculture tour stuff in the fall. They had a lot of school groups. I think at one time in the fall, I mean, they'd have 200 to 500 kids come through a day, and they would do some tours and try to teach them a lot about ag. And my parents still do a lot of that. They're both actively involved in Ohio Farm Bureau, and they try to do a lot of that stuff to promote ag. So they always had a few cows, and I don't even know. I think we went to our county fair, and we had some friends that were showing, and we led around a calf, and we thought it was pretty awesome. And I told my dad I wanted to show, and he had a buddy from college, Bob Agel, that was raising some mains and stuff at the time. And he bought my older sister and older brother, Becca and Matt, a steer from him. And then he bought me a heifer. And I mean, Clayton, he'd have been
I would have been really
very young. I mean, because I wasn't even in 4-H yet. And I was pissed. My sister showed my heifer in 4-H, and I got pissed because she got to show it and I didn't. So, Jake and Clayton would have been young. And we did that, and we showed kind of, I mean, they were just county fair stuff. And then my dad saw a article in a newspaper and for Kate's sale.
Farm and dairy.
Yeah, the farm. And so he went out there, he bought a steer and a cow-calf pair, and they sold like choice lot of two of Tyler's show heifers. And I think the one that ends up selling, like Fred Rittberger buys, she wins Louisville. Well, we didn't know anything about it, and our dad had bought the other one after the sale, and she was like reserve division at Louisville, and we just thought that was awesome. And then I'd say after that, I mean, we pretty much just bought a heifer or two from Cates's, pretty much every year. And then kind of towards the end of buying them there, we maybe didn't get the ones out of the sale, so we were kind of buying some out of the, replacement lot stuff. And we weren't spending a lot of money on them, but we were trying to, we enjoyed them. We would go a week before junior nationals and spend a week out there, help them and get our heifers ready. And we just kind of, I think, thought that was pretty awesome. And so that's kind of how we got started. And I think, Jake, you and I, we only showed shorthorns, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of at the end of Clayton's career, he showed some mains. I mean, kind of showed anything really that we could afford that we thought was nice and we could make something out of. And that's kind of how we really started in some Charolais stuff.
Yeah, I was talking to Tyler today, and he was reminiscing about you guys as a group coming out there a week before junior nationals. He said to this day he's never had kids that when you were looking at, you'd look at the calves and stuff out on the cows before junior nationals, the ones that were going to sell that fall, and you guys wanted to soak up and learn about what ideal structure was, and what was sound, what wasn't sound, and he's never had. He said, I've just never had a young kids like that were hungry for judging terminologies and just wanting to learn that stuff like you guys.
Yeah.
But and he also told me, Jared, about your first junior nationals. Jared takes a heifer to junior nationals. He thinks you were 12 years old when you took it.
Yeah, I was pretty young. Yeah.
Yeah. He comes up to him. They're getting ready. They're feeding. They're getting done for the day. Comes up to him the night before the show. Says, Tyler, what time do you want my heifer at the chute tomorrow to fit her? And Tyler said, it'll probably be 10 o'clock or so, but I'll touch base with you mid-morning and we'll get a plan together. Well, the next morning at 7 o'clock, Jared leads his heifer over to the chute, fresh washed, fluffed and puffed, ready to go, and he was ready to fit her. And he was like, Jared, let's just lay her down for a little bit. Let's just...
I was pumped, man. I was pumped. That
Hey,
was
so also on this first junior national story, I heard little birdies go to telling stories on you whenever you go to knowing we're going to interview somebody. They said that your dad took you to the show. You were 12 and left you there. Like, here's your camp, here's your feed. See you next week. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think he came back. I think the night before the show. I mean, I had no side panels. Jake and Clayton, I don't think they weren't there. It
I
was
wasn't
just
there. Yeah.
and no side panels. It was at a county fairgrounds. The rafters were low enough so I could hang my fan from the rafters. And yeah, it was. He came back at the end, and I stayed with his college roommate at the time at night and stuff. But I didn't know anybody. And I'll say, the one thing I remember about that junior nationals, Catherine Williams was still showing, and I'm fairly positive she won that year. But she had two heifers. One was from Kate's, and one was from Razor WHR. And I just never. I mean, I think I walked by their stalls 10 times a day just because. I mean, they were so much better than everybody else's that day, and it was just, like you said, you just try to soak it up and learn and see what they're doing and stuff. And I'll never forget that because they had two really nice efforts.
We talked right before we got started here, and I want to ask this question now, but Jared, it's obvious they started with you. Which one of you reaped the most benefit?
Yeah.
Sure.
But did you
We
reap
didn't know
the
what we were
benefit of what was that?
I said we just didn't know what we were doing like when I started.
Right.
And probably one of my proudest moments with my brothers was I was coaching at Blackhawk at the time, and so I was home for the summer. I think maybe Jake had just finished college, or he had maybe one more year, so he was home for the summer. And then Clayton was home, obviously, and he was still in high school. And you were still in high school, maybe just finishing up.
I just finished.
Finishing up, and we had 4 heifers.
Mm-hmm.
And we raised 3 of them, and then one of them we owned with Kate's, and we raised with Kate's. And I still think to that day, I mean, they might argue with me, but that was probably one of the nicest string of heifers we probably were taking to a show, and it was fun for us because we were all home that summer, and we spent pretty much all day, every day in the barn. And I will say this, I mean, the person that will outlast you in the barn every day of the week is probably Jake of all 3 of us. You get to a point where you're like, dude, come on, like you brushed her a million times. We're done. It's 10 o'clock at night. Okay. But yeah, so that was neat for us. And the one that we had raised, Clayton showed, she ended up being reserve grand then there at that junior national. So that was honestly probably the first time we had kind of won, something on a bigger scale like that. And that probably really kind of propelled us, I guess, as we were kind of moving forward, like, hey, I think we can do this. And that was probably the beginning of that. After that is when we probably transitioned into thinking like, hey, we can raise some stuff and we can sell them and we can market them and kind of move forward in that direction.
Right. Hey, Jared, the deal you're leaving out that you did win in the Shorthorns was the coveted sweepstakes award.
Yeah.
Tyler Cates told me the story behind that. The day before Junior Nationals, you go up to Tyler and tell him, I'd really like to win that sweepstakes award. And Brett, you know how the sweepstakes work.
Right.
You gotta do every event, right? Photography, salesmanship, poster board. You've got to do it all. And the day before they leave for the show, Jared proclaims that he would really like to win that. And Tyler's like, you've got to get to building. You got to write a speech. You got to do this. You got to do that. And within hours, There was poster board flying. He thinks the picture that made the top 10 was taken for the photography contest mid-trip between Indiana and wherever it was that year.
Could have been. Well, the reason I wanted to do it is the year before they were giving away like show boxes and fans and blowers. I thought, man, if I could get something like that, that'd be awesome. Well, the year I won, they took a comb and spray painted it gold and gave it to the high individual.
The golden comb.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow.
I did not hear that part. That's the icing on the cake.
So while we're talking about little things like that, it was the desire to have a show box or the desire to have a fan, which pushed you. You know, I heard one of you say earlier that this is two parts. I talked to your father-in-law a little bit today, Jared, just in what we were doing, and something that he said, Clayton hit on it a minute ago about your parents, that an aggravating thing about you sometimes is every day for you is about a win, and it's not a win like a banner win. It's just to improve from yesterday.
Yeah.
Clayton hit on that a little bit ago, that your parents were that same way, but would you say that that's what a little bit drove you in the cattle business, that you didn't know what you were doing when you started? You didn't have somebody holding your hand. Was it that drive is what sent you that way? Because it seems to me like listening in with your parents and what they were building, it would have been a lot maybe easier road to hoe to be over there, you know, building another greenhouse or delivering plants. I mean,
Yeah. I think if you want to see how competitive we are, you just come home for Christmas time and watch a card game go down. We play a lot of cards at Christmas, and probably the biggest cheater of them all is our mom. She cheats all. But it's just, I think all of our siblings, and we learned that from our parents. We learned that from, honestly, a lot of the people that we've associated with, and mentors. You know, just, you know, you just can't quit. You know, you just gotta kind of keep building, keep growing. And that's something too. I mean, we talked a lot about that this year. I think Jake and Clayton probably got a little tired of maybe me calling the springtime about just, you know, what we're trying to accomplish, and then hone it in, and make sure that the stuff that we're doing, we want it to be 100%. We're not trying to do probably too much at times. I've been trying to get them to move to Iowa. My mom, she won't let it happen. You know, but and then I understand. I mean, they're, like I said, they're pretty big parts of what my parents do. And it's actually pretty nice. You know, they run a set of cows there. We run a set of cows here. But we bounce a lot of ideas and stuff back off of each other. I mean, we probably talk to each other at least once a day, if not twice a day. So,
Yeah.
right.
Hey, that's another thing that I'm glad you brought that up, Jared, because that's another thing that Mark Hogue brought up when I talked to him today. He said for three brothers, he said he has never seen three brothers where nobody is in control when a decision is made, and that you leave after a decision is made, you're all three in agreement with it.
yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
100%, yeah.
He also
Yeah.
says that you guys speak in grunts. And he said I have not figured out how to speak Boyert grunt, that normally there's discussion. Jared will grunt, Jacob will grunt, and they will know what that grunt means.
Yeah. You know, Mark, he just continues to talk constantly. You're doing something, and he's trying to talk to you, and you're trying to get something done. And,
Oh man. So let's move out of you guys' younger time. We've probably set the stage for people to understand that silver spoon, that's maybe the assumption sometimes didn't what wasn't at your Christmas table. What was it, Jared, that drove you to Western Illinois? I mean, was that where you wanted to go growing
Or
up?
hey, don't get ahead of yourself. Blackhawk first, right?
Blackhawk. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Blackhawk.
All
Yeah.
three of them.
I
Blackhawk.
don't
Yeah.
want to get ahead of it. Yeah. So what fires you in those directions?
Actually, Tyler Cates, he went on a family trip with us. We went skiing, and he asked me. He said, "Have you ever thought about judging?" I said, "What's judging?" I didn't know anything about it. And he said, "Well, you could go to a junior college and probably get a scholarship, judge, and it'd be good. It'd be a lot of kids, in livestock industry, and you get to meet some pretty good friends." He'd tell me kind of about when he went to NEO and stuff. And he told me, he said, "There's two places. If you want to do it, I'll help set up a visit." He said Blackhawk, which is coached by Dan Hogue. And he said the other one is Butler, which is coached by um, Chris Molnix. And so I said, "Yeah, sure." And I set up interviews with both places. And I went to Blackhawk, and you both know Dan. And I mean, he's just the coolest guy ever, right? You meet him and just we walked around, we talked a lot about sports, we talked a lot about track and field, and I just really enjoyed my time, my visit. And it's nothing against Chris Molnix, because I have a lot of respect for him too, but I just it's when I left there, I thought, I'm going to Blackhawk. I never even went to Butler and looked. It wasn't like I was highly recruited or anything like that.
There wasn't any like UIL money laid on the table.
No. And Dan, he'd always tell a story. He's like, "What am I getting myself into? This long-haired, baggy-clothed kid just walked in." And so I went there, and I worked for Dan a lot at his farm there with his hogs and helped him a bunch. And we worked. I mean, I think all of us worked. That's the neat thing about that area. There's a lot of good livestock places that you can go. Randy Molnix, I think we all three helped them. Their favorite is definitely Jake.
I think they might have paid for part of our tuition going through there.
Yeah, they might have. They gave us the scholarship. Yeah. I helped Newt a little bit out there at Cardinal. So yeah, I did that. Went to Blackhawk, and then it was actually kind of funny. My dad and I were when I went to Blackhawk and I was moving my stuff in. We went to Transova, Missouri, to pick up some recip cows, and we drove through Western. And I always remember him telling me, "This is a neat little college town." Again, like I wasn't heavily recruited out of Blackhawk either. And some of the places that had talked to me, they were all, the out-of-state tuition was just so high. I couldn't do it. And I was actually going to go back to Ohio State, and I called Mark that summer and I told him, I said, "Hey, I think I'm going to go to Ohio State." And I remember this conversation. I was sitting right outside our barn, and he's like, "No, you're not. You're coming to Western." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." And I went to Western. I mean, that was pretty much the extent of it. And I'm glad I did. I enjoyed my time there a lot. And, I think a lot of things changed a lot from when I was there, when Clayton was there. And when I was there, a lot of my, teammates and I, we built a kind of a little baby pig feeding room to get pigs ready for Duncan and that kind of stuff. And we did it all. I think obviously with just things going on, that the school probably wouldn't allow that anymore. But back then, I don't think they knew either. I mean, we were welding gates and doing all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed my time. The thing about Mark is that I've always enjoyed when we go on judging trips, you spend probably a lot more time talking about what you would want to own, what you would want to breed, versus maybe that's a little bit to the undoing part of it, but versus how to place 4 heifers in a class or 4 pigs in a class. And I I always probably enjoyed that as much about Mark as any, is because when we go to places, you'd stick around afterwards and you'd want to know, he'd want to know pedigrees. He'd want to know, everything. And I always enjoyed that part, of Mark's approach to the livestock judging part of it.
Right.
And then you eventually came back to Blackhawk and judged yourself, correct, Jared?
Yep. I spent 2 years at Cates's, and Dan called me when Brian Arnold left. And I think Jake was leaving. I think Jake was just leaving Blackhawk, and I went back, and then was it my second team?
Yeah, I was on the second team.
And then I got to coach Clayton's team.
Yep.
I was there for 4 years, and at that time we were starting to have sales, and I think the first year Jake did it all by himself, and it kind of got to a point where we really got to hire somebody, or I was just going to go do it. And I had a lot of talks with these two, and a lot of talks with just some people around this area that were doing the same thing, and they gave me a lot of good advice, and decided to come back. And I think that was that 2015, 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 15.
Yeah,
Hey,
16. Yeah, 16 was the first sale I was here. The whole fall.
Talk about that just real quick. I think there's a lot of people, young. I look at you as being a young guy in this business, but a young, successful guy at that. Was it tough to step away from comfort, maybe as a judging coach and an income? Was it what was that like to step away, the very first step out of, can I do this?
My first semester at Blackhawk, I got paid $3,500, so it wasn't very much money. And the reason I tell people that all the time, because I knew it wasn't a lot of money, but I had some money saved from when I was at Cates's, and I'd sold a heifer with them. And I mean, I say that was the first semester. After that, it still was not a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I knew doing that it would help me progress. I met a lot of really, really good young people, and they're very successful now. Just you start throwing out some names of some people, and like my first team was Jake Bloomberg, Nick Fitzsimmons. Was a girl named Brianna Lawyer. Austin Ware. There was a lot of really good kids on that team. And then his team, you had Breck Demdam, who runs a Hereford ranch down in Georgia, John Reeser. There was just there was so many, and I'm gonna leave someone out, and someone's probably gonna, you didn't say my name, and I apologize, but and even towards the end, there was just so many good, young, talented people that you got to meet, you really got to know and understand. And I do miss that part of it. I miss probably the biggest in the fall. You get to pick and choose where you want to go. So you could go to a lot of places and look at cattle, look at livestock, and see a lot of places and how they operate. And that's the part. Now, I don't miss listening to reasons at all. I got pretty old towards the end. But I did. I enjoyed coaching, and it was to me, it wasn't about probably the money as much as just continuing to grow, build contacts, that kind of stuff.
Hey, Clayton, I did get the opportunity today to talk to an old teammate of yours, John Reeser, today, and he tells of a story. I guess during the judging days, Jared had a bit of a speeding problem with the judging.
I owe John Reeser a lot.
And so, yeah, he said one day they were on a judging trip, and Jared was driving, and he had just said when they got in the judging van that day how he could not get another ticket or there's a chance he might lose his license. So they were flying through little towns in Illinois on this judging trip, and what do you know, he gets pulled over, and Jared, he said Jared was freaking out. He said, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And John's like, somebody do something to make me puke. And the next thing you know, John Reeser gets out of the van, vomits. The cop comes up to the car and said, "What's going on?" And they said, "We're trying to get to a gas station because this guy had to puke." And the cop wrote it off as a bad deal and gave him a warning.
Oh yeah.
He said that day I felt like Jared owed me.
I did. I owed him a bunch.
Yeah.
I think I was going to lose my license for a year. I had a lot of speeding tickets in my lifetime. And the best part about that story is, I'm like, John, you gotta really sell this. He starts sticking his finger down his throat, and then he starts gagging, and all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, I think he's actually gonna puke. Not as the cop, it was one of them kind of short bus deals, and we open the door, and John just spews right as the cop. So at that point, I was pretty good shape, but no, John did. He saved me for sure.
He 100% did.
Wow. Jake or Clayton, was it ever a question that you guys were going to follow Jared at all to Blackhawk? I mean, was it ever I'm going to go somewhere else, or was that kind of the beaten path that you have comfort or you liked it or what?
Yeah. So Jared would have been a sophomore when I was kind of figuring out where I was going to be going. And he said, you should just come out here and look, see what you think. And I took another friend with me, and we went up and spent the weekend there. And after that weekend, I was pretty convinced that's where I was going to go. We had a good time, and I think I maybe went to like a morning practice with you guys too. And at that point, again, I had no idea what even judging, the whole judging thing was about. And so I thought it was pretty neat, and thought it would be pretty fun. But I did go back to Ohio State. Didn't follow there through the Western deal. Clayton was actually getting ready to graduate. He was going to be a freshman, and so I was thinking I'd be a little closer to home. And Kyle Culp actually just had taken over, and so he called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about coming?" And I was like, "Sounds like a good deal." So,
Right.
Yeah, and I would say too, that's kind of, I guess I didn't really think about it because that was the only place that I went to, and I kind of knew it. And you touched base on it, who reaped the most benefits when we were showing. But I would say with that, I probably had the most benefits because I could learn from them too and pick up what they did. And so, I was the youngest and the youngest of 6 in our family. And I wanted to be just like kind of, all my older siblings. And at that point, we started getting more serious. I think like that summer before I graduated, it was like another heifer would come home, another heifer would come home. I had like 8 of them in the barn. I was like, so, we were getting pretty serious. So it was kind of like, hey, let's do this, and we enjoy it. And, I wanted to be, like them and what they were able to do and kind of accomplish. So
there was one heifer we brought home that this is just kind of the stuff we had to buy because this is what we could afford. But she was wild. I mean, my dad picked her out. Clayton, did you go with him? Or was it just?
No, I just remember when he got home, he's like, she was jumping up at the nose.
Yeah, she was trying to jump out of the trailer the entire time. And then they unloaded her, and she just blew through like 2 gates and somehow turned the right corner and got into a lot before she was out and never to be found again. So I think Clayton wore a catcher's gear for like the first 3 months he worked on her.
Yeah.
Hey, when I was talking to Tyler Cates today, that's one point he brought up. He said them 3 boys liked them ranchy because they were you could get way more quality for the cattle when they were wild.
Yeah.
And that he said he knew for a fact one of you had a full-fledged catcher outfit
Yeah, I
that you
found
would
it.
wear
I
to,
did. I
to
found
break the
it.
ranchy ones.
Yeah.
Well, she was it was actually at Tim's Schaefer's where we bought her. And I was like, man, this heifer's nice. He said, dude, you don't want her. She's wild. I said, well, that sounds like she's affordable then. So we loaded her up. And I hadn't been home. I kept asking them how's she doing? How's she doing? We're still trying to break her. And I didn't know anything about the catcher's mask or full outfit. I come home and it's hanging in the barn in the wash rack. I was like, what is all this? But we got her broke. The best part is we got her broke. We took her to the state fair. And this is how scatterbrained we all can be. We took her to the state fair. We were pumped up. First time we were going to show her. Forgot to tattoo her. Got kicked out. Didn't get to show her.
Forgot the catcher's gear.
Yeah.
Wow. So Mark Core was telling me today that talking about you guys' drive and your work ethic, absolutely second to nobody. I mean, he said, I'm telling these guys will all flat outwork anybody. And he said, it's a little bit of between the three of you. Y'all try to outwork each other. He was telling a story, Jake, I think it was about you in Louisville one time. Show day, good heifer, gets beat, done, fixing to go to tie-outs. You completely washed this heifer. He said, I think it was you he was talking about. He said he completely washed this heifer. She's done showing, not going to show again. And he said, I look over there and he's roto brushing her. And before you go to tie-outs. But he said in his mind, she did get beat, but we're going to have to show her again. We're going to have to do something. He just never quit. And he said, I knew right then, these boys are just different. I
would say if you asked Jared and I, Jake would easily be the one that, he definitely does.
Yeah.
He can work circles around.
Now, if you give him a set of clippers, they'll set him down and go pick up a weed eater and weed 2 miles from the ditch. He will not clip. We cannot get him to clip.
Yeah. Corey and I can relate to that. We're a lot better.
Retired.
Hey, these guys are good. There's no need to.
My clippers anymore look like I did it with the weed eater, so I'm pretty good. But hey, Jared, Hogue was telling Corey a story I thought was quite funny about when you were in the judging van. He said there was 2 stories that were really funny.
Oh,
you have to tell the one about catching the sheep, number 1. But number 2, he said that you were the absolute fastest kid he's ever seen in his life. But he said that's also what kept you alive, because you were nonstop chatter to the point that everybody in the judging van would want to get a hold of you, but they could never catch you.
So, yeah, pretty much.
He said you were working out someplace and you were in a pasture that he called it 10 acres, and there was ewe lambs out there, and you asked him if you wanted him to catch one, and he said there's no way you could ever catch a loose ewe lamb in this pasture, and he'd never seen anything like it. You caught that ewe at a dead sprint in the middle of the green grass.
Yep. Oh yeah, we had lots of good times.
Hey, another one Tyler told me today, Jared, and he said you totaled on yourself, so it's plumb, because you must have been in your grand drive speech at Shorthorns last week. He said one day, Brett, that the day after Kate's sale, everybody was pretty wore out from the sale. The morning after the sale, they had a cow calf and had twins, one dead and one alive, and Tyler's dad
left the dead and alive part, though. Okay.
He didn't? Okay.
No, they left that part out. They said there's.
Okay. Well, Tyler's dad called Jared and said, "Hey, would you process?" He said process the live calf. Jared's saying he didn't know, but to make a short story long, Jared processed the dead calf.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. It was a good sale. And you know, I
His
think
eyes were open.
yeah, they were really open very much. And I still remember that. Brian texted me, said, I'm going to the golf course today. I said, okay. He said there's 2 guys. It was probably 6:30 in the morning, and I probably maybe went to bed at about 5:30.
Yeah, he said you spent maybe the evening up the road at Timmy Schaefer's.
Yeah. You know, Tim always has the big party in the
Yep.
band and stuff, and so I was a little foggy eyed, and I thought, boy, this calf ain't putting up much of a fight. And turns out
Yeah.
I gave the dead one first defense. So yeah.
Yep. Hey, the other question Tyler had that he really wanted to ask because he's just never known the answer. What was your guys' deal with Bradley the bull?
Yeah, he was mean.
How come he said he never had a problem with him, and you guys would take him home and he'd kick your heads off?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
He was the most. He was. We would take him. I think that's why they sent him to us.
Yeah.
He was mean, and I mean, I remember trying to halter him. It would take us like 30 minutes to get a halter on him, and then he'd kick us whenever we try to wash him. We'd get him to a show, and you'd work on him, and he'd be like chewing his cud, nothing's happening, and we'd get so mad. We'd be like kind of like ducking out of the way, ready for a kick, and he'd just stand there.
Yeah. Hey, he also said that you guys had a bull named Chiller.
We did.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good bull. He said the maddest he's ever seen Jared Boyert in all his life was a year in Louisville. He had a bull and you guys had Chiller.
Yeah.
And he said he beat you. And he said Jared went to the highest seat in Freedom Hall. And he said, he said he went up there and he pouted good.
Well, at that time, Kate's I don't know if you remember, but like back in the day, they'd get up every morning at like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So like when everybody started to get to the barns, all those cattle were fresh, clean, looked good.
Yep.
So we were going on like day 4 of that. I was pissed that I got beat, and I went up to the top, and I actually fell asleep.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, "I think he took a nap. I think he took a nap and slept for a couple hours up there too."
Yeah, they couldn't find me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So you guys got done with your 2-year deal at Blackhawk. Jacob, what was the decision? Why did you break the tradition, or what drew you back to Ohio State?
Well, Clayton, like I said, Clayton was heading back or getting ready to head to school, and at that point, we kind of came off of a pretty good year that year as far as some stuff that we were showing, and at that point, we were kind of thinking maybe, hey, we can maybe make this work, and just to kind of get closer to home. And Kyle Culp, I met with him there, and he good guy, and I just was later on, I'm pretty glad I did. I learned a lot from him, and there was some pretty neat things that, big perspective things that we were kind of go through when we were there at Ohio State. So,
you bet. Yep. And then you, Jared and Clayton, you took in the Mark Hogue effect there at Western.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. You guys probably knew him going into that deal and had gotten to know him over the 2 years judging for Dan, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of travel. I mean, just them schools all travel together and stuff. And I always liked the way he talked livestock, and, do the group stuff. And he's just, he's a pretty funny guy. I actually talked to him this morning, and, just he's very, I think, very similar to our approach. He's a little scatterbrained, but kind of has a focus, a vision on certain things, and so I thought he was a cool guy, and knew what he was talking about, and that's kind of why I ended up ultimately kind of going there. So
You bet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think when I went there, when you go on a visit to a school, you expect, to see the school. I think when I went there, I think I was cleaning sow lots at his place. I really hadn't totally met Mark before, and I was like, man, I like this. I'm coming here. It's funny because if you know us and you know our family, we're big huggers. And I really, like I said, I really hadn't just totally been around him that long. I mean, we were at Blackhawk, but still hadn't been around him. I think when I was leaving, I gave him a hug, and he just and it was like, Mike, to make this guy hug. I like this place. I'm coming here. So
When I talked to Mark this afternoon, they were just finishing loading the trailer for Nolan, I guess, to head you guys' direction for 2 weeks to go to them junior nationals. The the question, and he gave me a date. The question that he wanted me to ask you to is, when did the paradigm shift to where he went from being the teacher and you guys being the students to him being the students and you guys being the teacher?
hey, I talked to Carter today. He said my dad doesn't want me to bring my Simmental out, but I know if I don't bring her, she's not going to get work done. So I'm bringing her. So he called me this morning in a panic. Mark's like, so should we bring the Simmental? I said, yeah, you'll probably forget to feed her, so just bring her out too. We'll take it. He gets so mad, and you just kind of keep jabbing on him and stuff. But honestly, I'm very proud of Carter. When he was a young kid, you kind of wanted to strangle him a little bit because he's a lot probably like we were. He's a lot like Mark, and just go, but getting him focused onto something. And we went, Bailey and I, and we took the girls in Boston over there. We went and judged the show, and we stayed the night there. And I think they had 18 barrows on feed. And Bailey was like, man, he fed all them barrows by memory. He was up early getting his heifers in. So it's just really neat to see him and how he's kind of grown, matured, and just how he's caring for everything now and doing a lot of it. So,
yeah,
You brought up a good point there that I think everybody sitting here is a little bit that way. And I was just hung on something you said. He just fed all of those barrows by memory.
yeah,
That's the difference it's that way at my house a little bit too with Grady and Hudson. Their mom was down there with them the other night feeding. I was off doing some cow stuff, and at night she said, "Why do we have a feed board?" And it just caught me off guard. I said, "Well, that way if something goes wrong, somebody can feed and they know." And she said, "But I watched Grady and he didn't do anything that was on that board." I said, "Well, I know. Well, the other day we changed a couple of stuff as we're moving into junior national time. We changed stuff." And she said, "Well, it didn't say that on the board." The difference in the board and what you're talking about is those people that live that every day, that board is really irrelevant.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I just caught that right there. Not bragging on my kids, but
that's
the livestock people right there is you have that understanding. The memory deal people don't quite get, but we get it. So.
We say the board's kind of a safety net. We have one. Honestly, Jake Bonsack, he does all the feeding, and I don't like to feed. I like to have one person do it. And so whenever he leaves, I always feel bad because I got to call him and be like, all right, what are we feeding? I have no clue, And it's neat because, he's really good at what he does. So I don't have to sit there and ask him, what's he doing? We talk a lot about, hey, we're this far out. What do you think? But it's his deal, and that's what's cool to me on that side of things.
That's awesome. Well, let's kind of transition from college life and let's get to moving a little bit more maybe current. And however we want to word this, I don't know. I think for new people to the business, they may understand it as Boyert-Core. You know, and I don't know how much Boyert-Core is. I don't know how much just Boyert Show Cattle is. You guys give us a description of current day, you know, how you guys, you know, operate.
Yeah. Um, my wife, obviously, was a core, and she from Pleasantville, and so once we got married, I moved out here, and when we started kind of the sale, we talked to Mark and Dad about, you know, if we did this, can we, you know, can we kind of merge? We didn't have enough cows really at the time. I mean, I don't remember what we would have had that first year. I think we had 17 heifers on our sale, um, and so we kind of talked to them about, doing the sale out here because where we live is Northeast Ohio, and people aren't coming that direction unless they're coming to our place. So we decided to do that sale out here just because there's so much more traffic, people coming through. It's kind of right after all those pasture sales in South Dakota are going on, and so you get traffic of people going, to and from. And so yeah, Bailey and I think we got married in 16, and I moved out here, and Jake and Clayton stayed, in Ohio. But then they come out. I would say Clayton probably spends 4 months out of the year here. Probably like junior national time. Obviously, he's out here helping us get ready for these, and then sale time, and then with our fall borns. And then Jake, I'd say Jake. I mean, he's probably still out here at least 2.5 months a year. And we enjoy it. Bailey and I do. We have 2 little girls and a boy. Our boy's only 2 months old, but our 2 little girls, Sloan and Brindle, when they come out here, I mean, it's like they love it, and it's fun. It's awesome for us because they come out and get to see my family too as well. And so yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason why we started the sale in Iowa. Was just because a lot to do with location, and then I was moving out here, and I would say how we operate is pretty dysfunctional a little bit. As far as their equipment's their equipment, my equipment's my equipment. But when it comes to the cow stuff, it might be like, well, you paid for that one, okay, I'll pay for this one. And it's dysfunctional, but we don't ever question each other. We don't ever say, well, you owe me this.
Right.
And we just we make it work. And their recip cows are their recip cows, mine are mine. But as far as the donor cows or the genetics that we buy, it's just pretty much split pretty evenly. It's and the simplest way that we could figure out to do it is, what they raise in Ohio and bring out here, we do a split, and then whatever I raise here in Iowa and we sell it, we just do the split the opposite way. And so it's not like, they're just making their income off the cattle in Ohio and I'm just making out. I mean, our cattle together, we just kind of divide it up, and it makes it kind of work pretty easy that way.
Hey, talking about genetics there, Jared, tell us a little bit about about some of the donors, I guess, just some of the genetics that kind of made you what you are today, or kind of what the cornerstone genetics were.
I mean, obviously, to this day, I mean, probably the cow that has helped us grow, as far as being able to have facilities, and then buying more genetics, and we, like our parents, pretty much everything we make, I mean, we try to sink it back into what we're doing. And obviously the cow that has really helped us is the Tammy cow, and we bought her. My wife actually showed her last year, and I don't know. I think just from the beginning, we all kind of thought she's going to make a nice cow, and she kind of turned into a really nice show heifer. We sold her first calf on our sale, and it was good. And then, we started flushing her a bunch, and she's going on 10, I think, and consistently. I mean, probably one of the nicer ones we're taking to Semi Junior Nationals is out of that cow. And I think the coolest thing about her is I would say my best calves this year are all out of daughters of her, and not just one daughter, but probably 3 or 4 or 5 different daughters. And so that cow has been probably very instrumental. I'd say the first bull that we kind of bought, it was actually Brother Jake's idea. We were trying to get into the Charolais. We had kind of went through some of those heifers up at Thomas's in their pasture sale. And that was the year after the dispersal. We had bought some pregnancies. I think we bought maybe 10 cows out of that sale that day. And our best 2 were outsiders. And so we were bidding on a lot of these sibs in their sale, and they were getting pretty good. Jake was like, "Why are we buying these? Let's buy the bull." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, sounds like a great idea." We were sitting there eating lunch. We were working on our sale cattle, and I called them and asked them, and they said, "Yeah." And so we bought part of him, and again, he's been, I would say, in the Charolais breed the last 5 or 6 years, both on female and bull side. They've been very popular, and we raised a son called Outlier. And I think probably one of the favorite new things, we bought a bull. I got to give Tyler Bush and Wyatt Demnam credit for it. Wyatt was helping me that summer, and I told him when he went back up there, I said, "Hey, if you ever go look around," I said, "I'd really like to find a good purebred Simmental bull. So if you ever run across something, let me know." And he was at Bush's, and he said, "Hey, you want to go look at this bull? I judged him at some fair up there." He said, "I think he's really good." And Wyatt, he sends me this video of this bull, and I just text back, "Buy him." And he goes, "Well, don't you want to know what he is?" I said, "What is he?" And he told me. I'm like, "Even better. I have no clue what that is, And so I bought that bull. I sent it to Jake and Clayton. They're like, "This thing's awesome." And we bought him off of basically a cell phone video. We got him about a month later, and that's the bull that we're kind of promoting right now that we call Next Level. And I've got about 25 of them here. And I would say he ran on my fall cows, so I got a lot coming in the fall. I've used him very heavily for springs. They're in Iowa. I used him probably more heavily than they did, just because I probably hoarded the semen from him a little bit. But I flushed a lot of cows, and they're very nice. I would say 5 or 6 of our better calves in Iowa are out of that bull. So. And they're very consistent across the board.
Right. You talked about Tammy. I mean, it's one of my pleasures in life is when I flip on social media and is a jab at the many bad chicken Tammys or whatever the case may be. It's kind of outgrown you and Bloomberg now. There's other people get to picking at you a little bit, but
oh yeah.
When you think of the great cows in this business, you don't have to know you guys to know Tammy.
Yeah.
You talk about elite sires. You've got an elite cow. You've got an elite bull there already proven. That's a pretty cool deal. But I got to give it to you. These social media jabs back and forth from you guys, it's one of my pleasures for sure. So
Hey, tell us the story of Tammy, because that thing, if I remember right, she wasn't like lot 1 in the Maternal Legends sale that fall.
Oh no. I was coaching. I think it was actually Bloomberg's team. Was it your team or Bloomberg?
No, it was Bloomberg.
it was Bloomberg's team. And I took them up to South Dakota State to judge the steers from their state fair. And on our way back, I said, let's just swing in here. And we stopped. And that was when they were still doing their pasture sale. And I saw her, and I, again, didn't have a lot of money. And I just thought, man, I think she was a little fat. She was a little short-eared, and she had zero hair. And but I wanted to buy her for a cow. And so I think I was bidding on her. I think first bid was like $1,800, and I think she brought $3,250 maybe. And I want to. Josh called me and was like, "You got to be $3,250," and I was like, "Hey, don't call me back. I don't have any more money. I'm out. I'm done. Like, this is it." And I remember I was just real nervous because I really wanted to buy her. And yeah, I ended up owning her at about $3,250 in their pasture sale.
Wow. $3,250. Yeah, Brandon Horn 2 weeks ago was telling us that when he bought Business Done Right,
Yeah.
Give $1,800 for that.
Yeah.
So, quite unique. Started out at 2,000, and Dr. Mims was afraid he wasn't going to like him, so he jewed him 200. He wanted him to take him. So yeah, rags to riches story right there. And so that's So, and
No.
would you admit or not? You obviously didn't know she was going to be that elite. Did you have that in the back of your mind that I just bought a cornerstone cow, or did you just buy a good cow?
You never know what's going to happen. Hey, there's a lot of times you get lucky. Hey, there's been a lot of stuff we bought that we probably feel like we were pretty dumb for, and it didn't work,
Yeah.
So it helps, even those things out. Not everyone we've ever bought, has done that. But I would say, when we showed her, I think she was reserve grand at Iowa Beef Expo that year. And I had two people call me and offered me quite a bit of money for her. And I told them no. They just said, "Man, that's a lot of money." And I said, "I know, but I think we can raise some stuff with her." And I turned both of those guys down. I think they were maybe a little shocked, and I talked to Jake and Clayton. I'm like, "Boy, I think this is stupid, but we're going to do it. We're going to stick to it." And I'm glad we did.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you run into so many guys that are successful like you guys are in this business, and there's a definitive moment where you've got to dig your heels in and believe in the method of doing it and follow through, or just sell out and you never become what you guys have became today, obviously.
Yeah.
Right there with that cow for sure. So, hey, tell us as we start to wrap down, just go one at a time, and y'all can go in any order. But to this point, talk about a memorable moment. Whether it's what Corey just talked about, that defining moment of not selling Tammy and what she's done for you guys, or maybe it's the defining moment of choosing livestock production over horticulture. I don't know. There's got to be a memorable thing for you that's really, to this point, your young lives has maybe defined you, or something that you're really proud of.
You can start, Clayton.
On the spot.
I think, and we had actually talked about it before. It would have been 2013. It was in Des Moines. That was kind of when we had, a majority of our cows were shorthorns. And Jared talked about it. He said, we had 4 really, really nice heifers that year. And I would say that we're all partial to one of them. We had some success with her up to that point, and we were all like, "Hey, this one looks awesome. This is, our one that we think can do well at junior nationals." And I remember I think she got, beat in class even, and we had one that was reserve division. I think we were all just so upset that that heifer didn't do well. And I remember we were all sitting there back at the stalls and we were like, man, we thought we did very good and we thought we did what we could. And then we went back up. That one ended up being reserve overall at junior nationals there. And I would say, and what was neat was our entire family was there. My parents came out. I think my sister Anna was there, and so we were there and we did it as a family. It was one that we raised, and it was neat, and it was what we kind of have built our operation around. It is, it's us three brothers with a group of people that kind of help us do what we do. And I think that was the point where we're, at least in my mind, I was like, hey, let's do this. Let's make this work and try and see what we can do.
Well, guys, that's going to be tough to
Funny
top
part
right
about that
there.
story, the most pissed was Jake. Jake was mad. He said, "I'm not even going up." Because even the Red Known was reserve division behind Nick Sullivan.
Yeah.
And Jake said, "I'm not going up." And I said, "No, come on." I said, "Hey, I know we're probably not going to win the show, but hey, this is still cool. Typically, it's probably the other way around. Jake's probably telling me this. I'm like, dude, we still have a division at junior nationals. It's cool. Let's go up." We told Clayton, we said, "Hey, the heifer that beat you is probably going to win." And Todd Herman was judging, and Todd Herman would always run him into the ring. I said, "You're going to get up there, and we're going to run your heifer as fast as we can." What we didn't realize was that Clayton was going to run into the ring all the way to the time he stopped to set her up and pass 5 other people. So we got hey, you're just going to run in the ring just a little bit, but he just kept booking. It was neat because the heifer that we probably all thought was going to do the best, when he went to go pick that division, he walked by Clayton like he was going to pick Clayton and then pick the next one. Well, then when he picked him for reserve grand overall, he stood right behind him. Clayton had no clue he was there, and he just kind of tapped him on the shoulder. So it was a pretty neat thing. But when Clayton ran her in, Todd Herman was just dying laughing. He's just like, "This is awesome,"
I like it.
Yeah. I would kind of go. That was Clayton actually stole mine. That was actually going to be kind of I think that year was really probably the year that we worked hard and we were like, hey, we had them as good looking as we could, and we went, and I think we were pretty proud of what we did, and being that we raised them, I think that made it even cooler. And then to have some success, I think that kind of was like, okay, I think we can do this, and we can raise some. And if we're gonna, Clayton was kind of getting ready to be done, and if kind of thought hey, if we're gonna continue to do this, let's do it. And I think that's kind of when we started breaking out into some different breeds as well too, to go along with the sale. But I would say probably one of the coolest moments between the three of us would be when we got to do the junior nationals, the Bred Known show. That was fun. Jared kind of asked Clayton and I to go in with him on it, and it was we had fun. That was a really good time sorting through them, and that was a good 2 days going through them.
Cool.
Yeah. I would say mine is I think it was, so there was two sales that Jake did by himself, was 14 and 15. And like I said, our first sale was we were pumped, right? You got through it, you sold 17 of them, and but I think it was probably 2015 I think that was when I was really like, all right, like I need to get back to this. I want to, be around full time. And Jake was there, and we had a Charlet, and there was a Shorthorn and a Charlet, and they were both really nice. And it was kind of the first time where, our cattle, that in my opinion, where they sold really well, but and then did really well. And I think that was something that really probably got us going in the Charlets, and really kind of pushed us to kind of focus on that pretty heavily. And we've been trying to do that. And then, even like my in-laws, they don't run a lot of cows, but the donor cows kind of that they have right now are doing a really nice job. And, they've been raising some nice Angus heifers. And so, and we wanted to, I think that first sale, they had a really nice Simmental, and that's when that sale for us, it was like, we can put some of these breeds together. And we spent a couple years driving around trying to find them. And I think for us, it was just like, we enjoyed doing that. I think probably Jake and I, we stayed at some slum hotels in Illinois. We stopped by Bloomberg's, and actually Jim showed us all around. And he let us take 2 heifers. And, Jake and I thought, man, this is awesome, but it kind of got to a point where we were getting more cows, we were running more cows, and it gets tougher and tougher to leave all the time. People always ask, like in the spring, what have you seen? I'm like, I haven't left home yet, and I think that was our goal ultimately as we continue to grow, was to raise more of what we were going to sell, and we'll still go look. No doubt about it. I think that's the only way you can continue to get better, is to see what's out there. And but I would say the last couple of years, probably, I would say 90% of them on our sale we raise. And I thought that sale that year in 15 was kind of probably something that really started making us think, if we're going to do this, then we need to raise them, and we need to own them. And if we're going to follow them around and do all that, you guys know, I mean, it takes a lot of money to follow them around after you sell them. And so that was something we really kind of focused on. And that was a big thing. And then, us 3 brothers, in my process to try to get them to move out here, we bought a farm out here together last fall, and kind of trying to do some different stuff with that as well. And so it's just neat. We grew up very family oriented, and we like the fact that we can kind of keep it that way.
Yeah, I've caught on to that tonight. It's something that you guys talked about, Clayton. I think you said it when you talked about your mom and dad, that they built that greenhouse deal on quality and customer service. And all through this tonight, visiting with you guys, I think that's something you guys saw value in, was quality cattle and customer service. And I don't know that. I still take him back to your dad going into the bank and him just telling him no, and it didn't change him at all. It didn't define him. He just outworked them and made it work. And I think that all through here you can see sprinkles of your parents in your business. And I think, Corey, for me, the takeaway here was, you just talked about y'all do everything as a family. You bought a farm together. Although there's cattle in Ohio and Iowa, they're still split. You guys, Jared, you've got family now. You've got girls and a little newborn boy, but it's still, the 3 of you brothers still band up together and do things. I think that's, to me, the coolest takeaway here is you haven't outgrown family. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And
I would say too, to add to that, I mean, my wife, I was actually telling Clayton this morning, just we felt like there was times where you used to have a little bit of downtime, and Bailey is she's awesome. She does a lot and doesn't say much, other than she wished she maybe could be outside more. But and honestly too, and I want to reiterate this, but Jake Bonsack, he's been here a year now, and we're thinking about adopting him. He has to stay into the family business. He becomes a brother, and he can't leave.
Yeah.
But he has been very, very a huge part, and a big weight off of my shoulders. And like I said, I mean, Clayton and him are probably pissed, but I mean, they've been clipping everything, and they'll be like, "Well, why don't you come help?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go over here and do this. I'll see you guys later." You know, so. But it's we have a lot of people, and my in-laws, like I said, you know, they kind of listened to us what we were wanting to do, and you know, actually we break everything up at my house, but we sell everything at their place, and so, you know, for them to allow us to do all that, and they get some free labor out of Jake and Clayton too in the process, but it works really good. I'm not saying there's days that, you know, you want to strangle each other or you get frustrated about things, but I think the biggest thing, and this is something our parents always taught us, and you know, my mom and dad, they both work together every day of the week, and you know, your business is business, but your family's family, and you know, you can be mad about something during the day, but at night, you know, you're still going to sit down and have a meal, and it's going to be okay from that side of things. So.
Right. We've hit on work ethic, and you hit on your wife, your mother-in-law. Do you ever get anything out of Mark? That's kind of like at what level do you get work out of Mark?
Hey, I'll say this about Mark. Okay, if you got something that needs fixed, he'll fix it. If your hay mower breaks down in the middle of the field, he'll fix it, and he's pretty handy about that kind of stuff. Okay. The problem is the next time you mow, you might get a wrench through the backside of your window. But no, Mark's. I mean, he travels a lot. He's gone a lot. But you know, he does a lot of that stuff around here. We had a water break the other day, and he's been kind of working on it at night, and you know, just those types of things. And I'll tell you, the best thing probably on my in-laws is during calving season. They don't sleep a lot. And I tell my wife, she's always bragging about how her kids sleep through the night. And I say, they got that from me, so don't complain when I go to sleep. I don't wake up. So she really has to get me up to go down there to do stuff. But they're very good about that. And I would say that's probably, and it's huge, you know, I mean, you got to have them alive to sell them. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Hey, as we wrap this deal up, guys, go around the horn one last time. And for those, you know, young kids, you know, college kids, young kids coming up through the ranks here, fighting and clawing and trying to do what you guys have done here, give them a piece of advice that you guys use that kind of, you know, give them a little insight to get where they want to get to.
I will say, I would say we're actually talking about this. My dad was doing a Farm Bureau speech, and he asked actually Clayton. It was my mom, Clayton, and I all what you said. Hey, I got to give a speech. We were all there that day. He asked us separately. He said, "What's one thing that you guys?" think is key in being successful, and all three of us said, don't be afraid to fail. And I think that's pretty important. You're gonna fail no matter what. It's just what you take away from it and what you learn from it, and keep going.
Yeah, I like that. And I guess something for me is just, you know, and I think with what we do, there's a lot of just really great people. And I think something that, you know, when you are in a business where you're helping other families, it's just being genuine, being a good person, and taking care of people, and making sure that, you know, they feel like, you know, you're there, and making them feel like you're part of their family. And I think you do that and you have that customer service side of it. And it's not just, we want to sell as many calves as we can. It's, hey, we want to make sure that you get something out of it and you're able to see like, hey, I can improve here, I can do this better, and learning along the way. And then hopefully one day you're able to take that and that family can make some money on those animals that they may be purchasing from us. And so I think that's a big goal of ours. And especially because, we had so many people that taught us and allowed us to do better. I think a big thing that makes us happy and just we love to see is when there's a kid that every year you kind of see them do more and more and do better and better, and their calf, maybe needed some work at the beginning, and a few years down the road they're hairy, they're right and they look good. And so that is probably as much of a joy for us to see as anything.
Absolutely. Right now I think there's 3 kids that are staying with us, and then I think there's 3 more coming tonight yet. And so, when we were kids, like I said, we'd spend time, at Cates's or, even whenever, but we enjoyed that part of it, and it's neat. Those kids are now staying with us, our families. We get to help them. And Riley Green, she's here from Michigan, and she's been here she came out before Keys and Maines. Her brother had a Maine. They went to that. She stayed here, and she brought her Simmies. And, she's just killing it. She's helping rinse everything. She's helping break, some calves that we got weaned. And so it's fun. I asked her today, I said, are you ready to go home yet? She said, no. I said, do you like it out here? She said, yeah. I said, all right, sounds good. Let's just stay the rest of the summer then. Yeah. And, but, and I think that's, as far as, for us, I think if you have any interest to do anything, it doesn't even have to be this, it can be anything. If you put your heart and your soul into it, and you're smart about how maybe, how you spend your money to get it going, and you really focus on the things that can make you money, I think, you can do whatever you want to do. I tell Mark this all the time, and he gets really upset. I always tell him I'm going to hire Carter right out of college or right out of high school. And he said, no, he needs to go to college. I'm like, dude, college is dumb. Like, the only thing I went to college for was for the judging team, to meet people. And I was like, the actual paper you get at the end, it doesn't really do much. It's just how you present yourself, how you talk to people, and just your work ethic. It can go a long ways. And my dad, he said the best thing he had ever heard was hearing somebody say something about a diploma. He said, it doesn't, what your diploma says, I don't care. I just care the fact that you showed up somewhere for 4 years on a consistent basis and you finished what you started. And I thought that was funny because it's somewhat true. And so, this whole thing, it's humble beginnings. And I watched you guys' one with Brandon Horn. I think that guy's awesome. He's one of the coolest guys there is out there. I don't know him extremely well. I know him very little, but I enjoy when I do talk to him. And so that was neat to kind of hear some of those stories. And I think it's, for us, we're kind of just getting started, and we want to kind of continue to do this. I think our ultimate goal is do this, for the long haul. Hopefully someday we can, my ultimate goal is have a pasture sale someday and just sell them on the cow and not have to rinse 75 head every day. But that's what we really want to do. But for right now, maybe when we get too old that we can't do that anymore, that's what we're going to end up doing. But we enjoy raising livestock. We enjoy the people. I get a little discouraged sometimes when, you're at a junior national and, there's high dollar heifers and the same families do good. And you hear somebody say, how do you expect a family to get started in this and think that they can do good? And I think I don't really think that has anything to do with it. I think if you find somebody who's willing to help you pick out something, and then you work hard at it, I think you can be competitive. I mean, there was a lot of heifers that sold high that did really good at that show, but there was also some heifers in that show that probably brought under 10,000 that were division winners. And I think that's the biggest thing is just if you really put your heart into it and you work hard at it, then you can pretty much accomplish what you want to do.
Right.
Hey, and we didn't select Brandon Horn and you guys. It's just kind of the two names we came up with. But the two deals I take away from both you guys' interviews, Brandon Horn started his operation with an $1,800 bull. And the cow that put you guys on the map, Tammy, was, what'd you say, 3,200?
Yes, sir.
3,200.
Yeah.
So to the people that say you have to spend an absorbent amount of money to start a program, that should show you to 1,800 and 3,200 made you guys two operations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corey and I both would also interject in there that when you run across another $3,200 Tammy,
You guys want a partner?
Yeah.
y'all can put us in the group text. We're in.
Yeah.
You guys are
Hey, we bought a couple more of them. They didn't pan out.
yeah, nobody talks about that though. No, it's awesome. I mean, and Corey said it right. We had a list of people when we got started here, and visiting with a guy the other night about this. Your name come up, and it was like I really felt like I honestly, I tell you, I felt terrible for not having you on the initial list. I had picked older people, but I almost feel like, I mean, like I said, it was a little bit to me. I'm glad this guy brought you up because I do think the humble beginnings, the people, I didn't know your whole story. I'm glad to hear it now, but man, you guys are awesome. You're awesome for this business and your willingness to teach the next generation. You see value in youth and value in good livestock. So congratulations to this point and good luck at the junior national run that you're fixing to go on again. And we will catch up with you later on this fall.
Awesome. No, we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Coming on, guys.
Oh, no trouble. Thanks. Y'all have a good night.
You
You
too.
too.